bottom left-hand screen of your screen, there's the stop video button. So if the red line is not through it, that means we can see your face clearly. Please keep your mics muted so we can hear all the speakers clearly and we're paying attention to them. Right next to the stop video is the mute button. So if the line is through it, that means you are muted. So the line should be through it at the moment. If everyone could please change your name to your full name, your first name, last initial, school initials, and the state that you're in. So you do that by going to participants at the bottom of your screen and then find your name. And right next to it should be a rename button. So you're gonna change it to your first name, last name, school initials, and your states. I'll give you guys a few minutes to do that. So at the bottom, click participants, next to your name, rename, your name, school initials, your state. As Chris mentioned, we have people from all over logging in. So give you guys a few minutes to do that. Full name, school initials, and states. And then at the bottom also, we have the chat option. So if you have any questions for our amazing panel, you can throw all your questions right in the chat. We'll get to them along the way. Either Chris, Daniel, Julia, myself, we'll get those questions to the panelists. And then also, just pay attention, please take notes. This is gonna be an amazing session. Respect the session. Again, any questions you have, drop them in the chat and then we'll get to them. So I'll hand it over to Daniel, who's gonna introduce our amazing panel of guest speakers.
This would probably help if I unmuted myself. Let's run that back. Thank you very much, Tahaji. We appreciate each and every one of you that showed up today. Let's get it started. We're gonna go through a couple of moments today. We're gonna be talking about service-based businesses. So some of you have decided that you wanna do something where you provide a service. These are some of the people, we were able to bring in some people with some amazing experience on both sides of the spectrum. So we have Miss Judy Stewart, we're going ladies first, who's been a senior executive, proven track record of success. Her management consulting business, Creative Sense Inc., has actually helped to develop specialized profit enhancing brand growth strategies for over 50 businesses, and she has been an advocate someone who really is passionate about not only entrepreneurship but also working with Nifty. So Miss Judy, if you're here, please introduce yourself to the room.
Unmute.
Yes.
Hi everyone, I'm so excited to be here, and I think there's nothing better than to be an entrepreneur and be creative and build something. So I'm here to help in any way. Nice to meet you.
That is awesome. And the gentleman who I was speaking to a few minutes ago, Mr. Andres Cordona. Andres is actually somebody who is not too far ahead of most of you. Andres is actually from Miami, Florida. Was a member of Nifty back in 2010 and actually came up with the concept of a basketball training business that he's been able to kind of take and leverage for not just current success, but also to get into other businesses. So Andres, if you would like to take a moment just to introduce yourself to everyone on the line.
Sure. Hey everybody, how are you? My name is Andres Cardona. I am the owner of Elite Basketball Academy. I graduated from Nifty class 2010, and I started my business when I actually was you guys' age, thanks to the business plan competition that I started in class.
Awesome. So let's get right into it. Of course, we had you introduce yourselves briefly. Andres, really quick, man, tell me a little bit about your business. Give me your fast pitch.
Sure. So we're a basketball academy that caters to kids ages 6 through 18. We focus on skill and development and on providing a safe learning environment for kids.
Oh, wow. That was like a 20-second pitch. Good, well done. Ms. Stewart, if you wouldn't mind sharing your elevator pitch with the group.
My elevator pitch.
Yes, ma'am.
You need to explain what you mean. I know an elevator pitch, but as it relates to me and all the work I've done, how do you want me to do that?
Let's go with your elevator pitch for your consulting business.
Okay. My elevator pitch for that is essentially thinking about the customer first and how do you strategize to create a brand to go forward and to last. And I work with clients, and I've worked with famous names from Ralph Lauren to Toomey to Ringling Brothers to Rockefeller Center. And the key that I found and where I do get business is I have a good team that we've all run businesses and done varying things within business. So we're a balanced team. And the key is that I encourage all of you to think about is research. Don't act until you really know everything about your competitor, about what's going on. Live in your customer's shoes. That's what I've learned, and that's what myself and my team are able to bring to the party, that we really think like that end-all consumer, because that's who you're trying to get in a service business, and how to move and be agile with them. But the key that I cannot underline enough is listening to your customer, listening to your team, and really doing very strong research. When I created Kids Are Us, we researched, a team of us, for over 9 months before we opened the doors. And that is part of why it could be successful, because we knew the need, the void, and the competitive arena around us. So there's my pitch. My pitch is to you, not to me.
I love it. I love it.
You want me to add to that at all?
Well, I was going to go into, so the next question that I had, because a lot of the times students want to kind of figure out what's the ceiling on having a business, right? On starting your own business, right? Because up until you encounter this class, a lot of students aren't familiar with the concept of entrepreneurship. So what would you say has been your biggest win as an entrepreneur or as a business owner?
I think it's what I was just talking about. It's understanding the customer and combining that with what's the void and what's the need.
Awesome.
And waiting to really nurture it and to get it where you need to be. Because to win long pole, there is no ceiling. You got to stay flexible with the changes going on. And of course, none of us can believe what we're living right now. But you got to hear. And I think that's what gets us through. And if you hear and keep moving with hearing and surround yourself with the right people, and you don't want everybody to think like you. I like everybody to argue. Let's get it all out on the table. And then let's figure it out.
Right.
So I don't know if that answered your question, but that's what I'm thinking.
Awesome. Andres, share. What do you think has been one of your biggest wins in time as a business owner?
So, well, my biggest two things. So I'm going to address first the ceiling and then on the win side. So for the ceiling, it's very important that, especially as young entrepreneurs, that you understand that you are the ceiling. The business is going to grow as much as you can grow it. And that means how much do you understand financing? How much do you understand sales? How much do you understand delegation or an org chart, a business plan? So it doesn't matter what the idea is. You can be selling burgers. You can be teaching basketball one-on-one like I did. What keeps you or grows you is your own skills. So that's on the ceiling side. My biggest win is when I was much younger, like the age of most of the kids that are currently joining us. I thought that from one day to the other, I was going to make a $200,000, $300,000 sale. And what I've realized is that it hasn't been like that. It's been gradually and steady and slow. And then sometimes you go down a little bit and then a little bit more. But occasionally, for example, I was telling Chris, I was thinking to myself, man, I can't believe we're at 20 employees. We're doing $90,000 in sales a month. This is crazy. You would have never thought that we would be there at this point, right? So that I think is my biggest win, for sure.
Awesome. Now, everybody talks about entrepreneurship through the win side of the column. Would you be able to share a situation where you didn't win, a loss that you had, because it's not always roses. Sometimes it's thorns as well.
Sure, sure. So I have a ton of those. Probably have more of those than wins. But one that happened maybe a year and a half ago that was big for me, and I had a client who was able to introduce me to someone who could have opened a lot of doors for my business, a politician, a senator, who was going to help me open a lot of doors to the school systems, not just in Dade County and Broward County, but all over the state. And that would have been huge for me. And I was unprepared to the meeting, and I got there 3 minutes late, right? I pride myself, okay, in always being on time. But I slipped, and it's just important because I've been doing business for a while, but these are things that you can't fake. It's a lifestyle. So guys, you got to be on time, and you have to be prepared if you want to succeed and if you want to earn money at the highest level, right? If you're fine with, being mediocre, then that's fine, right? But in anything you do, whether it's business, whether it's, school, you have to decide what it is that your not principles, what's the word I'm looking for? Let's just say your metrics, okay? The metrics that you hold for yourself, they have to reach a certain minimum in order for you to succeed. So being on time, being prepared, that was a huge loss for me. But the way you convert that into a win is that most likely it will never happen to me again. So,
right.
Because I felt that pain of making that mistake, and I'm like, man, I can't believe I let this opportunity pass me by. Now going forward, I'm sharing it with you guys because it happens to everybody.
Ms. Stewart, how about yourself? Would you care to share a loss and the lesson that you took from that loss?
Yeah, I think the losses that I've had were basically associated with being too maybe egocentric in presentation of something, not thinking enough about who I was presenting to and why, and what their needs and thoughts were. And I learned over the years to open up, be sure you hear more, be prepared, but don't just go all the way with your presentation without getting feedback and hearing from the people you're presenting to. And, there've been several losses of accounts, consulting accounts that way. Sometimes you can get them back. And what I learned is not everyone, how you're an entrepreneur and you're enthusiastic and you've got an idea and you're trying to get help with it and move it forward. Some people can't hear it all at once. And that's another thing I learned. If I said too much at once, or if I thought there was too much wrong or too much needed to be created, it couldn't be received. So again, it's back to listening, hearing, researching. The more you do all of that, you won't fail.
I love that. I love that. So let's talk about it, right? Because you kind of opened the door a little bit about that. Your approach to developing your business, how did you identify a problem that you then created and built out? So when going into starting your concept, what was the mind map that you used to make that happen?
Are you asking me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm going to use Kids R Us as the example. I was brought in by Toys R Us to create a kids business, okay? They'd never had one. They had toys. They wanted apparel. I came out of women's apparel. My background had been being a buyer for Saks Fifth Avenue and for Bloomingdale's. So I didn't know a lot about the kids world, and I didn't have kids. So I'm going back to how did I create it? I got to talking to people. What do you need? What's not happening? I did research. I went to every children's department in a department store, every children's store, and I looked at it. I did hire some children's experts to work with me. But every step of the way was listening and research. And it became very clear. The sizing in the kids industry is not consistent. It's very tough on the parents. A kid goes through 14 sizes by the time they're 12. They wanted to have areas just for them. The infant business is different than the toddler, then it's different than the tween business. That was not demarcated in most places. And boy, did they want a discount price. And so the real win, and the thing that was obvious to me, but not to others, was if you were going to open and create a division for Toys R Us, why not match that everyday low price? But that had never existed in apparel. And that was fascinating to work on. To make it an everyday low price meant getting vendors to sell us was difficult because they wanted you to hold the real price. So you really had to sell and give them word arguments, which we did. And even the public didn't understand. After a week of opening at an everyday low price, we quickly learned from a mistake. We couldn't say that. The consumer didn't understand that term in apparel. So put a big sign saying every day on sale. Well, then they got it. So that's what we learned. I mean, and then you kept going from there. How do you handle it? How do you display things easier? How do you make it customer centric, easy for the parents? But you know, another thing I learned in the preteen departments and 7 to 14, girls did not want to shop with their parents. They wanted to find their own thing. So that was a different behavior pattern. So we put different personnel in there that knew how to handle that. So again, it's listening to your customer.
I love the fact that you kind of tied that all back, because so far every question really does come back to understanding who your customer is and then listening to what they're telling you. Andres, same question for you, man. Obviously you had to have some skill. So how did you go from having skill to turning that into a business?
So for me, I was fortunate enough that I was able to start a business in something that I was completely passionate about. I mean, I loved what I did. And the question that was presented to me was, if I didn't have to earn a living, what would be the one thing I would like to do if I didn't have to worry about earning money and paying bills that I would do every day with a smile on my face and enjoy it? And so I thought about it for days. And at the time I was, basketball is all I knew since I was in 7th grade. So I said, you know what, I wish I could be, involved with basketball. If I don't go pro, then I would love to either teach it or coach it. I admired my coaches a lot. So that they were, my father was never around. So they were kind of like my fathers, and I looked up to them. So the opportunity came. Well, that's the passion side. The way I was able to match the opportunity, part that there wasn't a service for kids. For kids that were serious about getting better from a young age. So all the academies, all the trainers were focusing on collegiate athletes, but not on kids that were in the middle school level, even elementary school level or high school level. So I saw that opportunity. And the one competitor that I had was priced way too high for the market that I was in, right? So my school and my teammates, there's no way we could afford $200 an hour. My parents, my mom would never be able to afford that. So I devised a system. I started with one-on-one training. And what was to my advantage, like to many of these kids, is I was young. I didn't have a wife. I didn't have kids. I didn't have, my bills. I didn't have a car. I mean, I had a bike. That's how I started my business on a bike, and that's a huge competitive advantage, because the one thing I did have was sweat equity and time. I was willing to outwork, and I was willing to get paid less than minimum wage if I have to get my business off the ground. And for me, it was the first $50 I earned. I mean, I can't explain, and some of these kids will hopefully have that experience. I had an idea and I was able to convert it into money. That to me was beyond, especially in the service industry, right? Because in the product industry, you can sell candy for a profit, but that's not, it's not an idea. That's not somebody paying you for an idea. So that to me was very empowering. So love, right? And you got to obviously have the opportunity, right? You got to see an opportunity and an opening. For me, I just got very lucky that what I loved was the opportunity that I found.
I love that answer. Now talk to me, right? Because opportunity, idea to money.
Mhm.
How did you develop your business model to say, okay, idea to, right? Because from idea to money, there's a lot of real estate, a lot of steps there. So how did you develop your business model to make that happen?
So ironically enough, okay, I didn't consider myself a good salesperson, right? And this was all because someone early on made a comment. My mom actually made a comment. She's like, you're not a good salesperson. And that really struck me. So I was like, man, I'm not a good salesperson. I gotta come up with a model where I don't have to sell every day or every month, because then you imagine, my mom already said I'm not good at it. So I came up with the subscription base because I love the idea of recurring income, right? So the way my mind works was, you know, even when I buy things, okay, I don't like to be on monthly payments on a computer or on a car or things like that, because I don't like the idea of constantly have to pay things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think we fool each other. But on the receiving end, I love the idea that I make one sale and that's going to provide income for me for the next 28, 29 months, right? I just have to work on making sure that customer is happy. So that's how it happened. And also, because I was very young, what I saw was, okay, it's going to be much easier for me to convince a parent to give me $50 a month than to give me $350 at one point, at once, right? And that came from my background, right? Because I knew that if I went up to sell my mom, for example, and I told her, look, mom, this is going to cost $350, she'd be like, get out of my face. No, I'm not going to give you $350 right now. So that's how my business model came about. And again, it wasn't so much like Judy said. I wish I could say I was smart enough to start looking at my competitors and say, okay, they're doing it this way. It was just more of my situation in life at that point. You know, I didn't have a lot of money, so I had to try to make a smaller sale and try to make it recurring. So
now I love the fact that you touched on subscription-based business, because we're actually going to be talking about that next week, Tuesday or Thursday, I believe. But that's a very mature approach, even at a young age, to a business model, right? You're not just talking about, let's get this money once. You're talking about, how do I keep making it something that happens on a consistent basis? Make a sale once, eat for months.
Sure.
If you'd like to share, how did you kind of develop your business model?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Oh, well, you know, first of all, I want to add on to some of what Andrea said.
Absolutely, absolutely.
If there's one thing that you can hold on to that is critical for success, is your passion.
Mm.
And he used that word passion, and I can't agree more. You've got to do something you love, you want to do, and you feel for. And I think Andreas did something that he saw a void without even necessarily knowing it, because he was doing something he loved and something he was into. And that's what we all need to do. So I just have to underline that. And I'll also tell you that as an entrepreneur and creating something, you don't necessarily get a lot of sleep. So if I look at people who've made it in the business, most of them don't require a lot of sleep. So it's something you need to think about, because you're energized, you're passionate, and you just keep moving and doing. Now, going back to the question of planning, I think that's what you want me to talk about?
Yes, building your business model.
Building your business plan. Well, we were lucky, and this is the different end of what Andreas had, but you can all have it. There are ways to go online and to learn what a real business plan is and a business model, and to study them and to tailor them to your own cause. In the case of Kids R Us, we spent hours and hours looking at every category, every expense, every line, not just, you look at the rent, you look at every person you need to hire. You do, frankly, I did 3-year plans. so that I could look at what we needed for the long pull. But you're talking every expense, from rent to IT to social to media, administrative. You're trying to get every expense you can think of and do the research to know what that will be. And then you're looking at the top line. What revenue can I bring in and when? Now that you've got the top and the bottom in your planning process, you then start looking at the difference between it. And when do you think you might make money? I mean, it's interesting to note that we have to be careful with our expectations of making money as we make plans. You're better to do a realistic plan, know what you're up against, get some backing if you need it. Most businesses do not make money for 2 years. That's beyond an average number. That's most businesses don't make money for 2 years. So you kind of need to hear that and have that in your expectation base. But if you set yourself on the right path and you look at your margin, and that's key. Can you make some money from your service, from your product? How much can you make? How does that relate competitively? Are you pricing it properly? When do you bring in personnel? All of this, frankly, needs to go on the computer. You need to be looking at it and understanding it. It's as important as everything else. Your passion needs to go into that so that you see ahead of time and you can sell from that.
So it's funny that, well, not funny, but it's ironic that you answered the question that way, right? Because it actually bled into the next question, which was talking about how did you determine your cost structure? How do you determine your cost? So you kind of spoke a little bit to that. Did you have anything that you wanted to add to that specific question, or do you think you covered most of that?
Well,
previous answer.
A good question. From a cost perspective, depending the business, how developed, you know, what your competitive arena is, you can go around and ask people. And I would do that. I would go into somebody successful in the kid's business and say, what kind of costs are you doing? What kind of margin? How did you get there? What did you do? What I love about being an entrepreneur is if you handle it right, pros in similar industries will talk to you and give you real information. And the more you know about the real costs, the better off you are. You cannot be unrealistic. And you need to get out there and, you know, am I projecting the right rent? Can I really get that space? Maybe I can't afford that. Maybe I'm better to, instead of renting, sublease from someone. I mean, there are ways to do things better once you look at all these costs. When do I bring on people? How much do I bring them on? Can I do it part-time? Can I do a temporary basis? What about the media costs? I mean, we all need our websites, the cost of that, keeping that up, but that can generally be freelanced. So, but costs are key. You got to be realistic about them.
Andres, you spoke a bit, you know, about looking at your competitors and the fact that there was such a gap between what was realistic in the marketplace and what you knew that the average family you were familiar with could sustain. So how did you figure out both your costs and then decide on a price?
So there's two parts. The first is I didn't really get to understand my numbers. I'm going to be frank with you. To maybe 3 years, 4 years into I started my business. And I can tell you today, most business people most business people that I come across don't really understand their numbers. So it wasn't a mistake. Being so young, I said to myself, look, if a basketball costs me $35, right? I don't really have to pay rent because I could use the school facilities, the gates are open, right? I didn't really think about getting liability insurance because I was like, yeah, it's gonna sue me. I'm 16, you know, and plus we're playing basketball. What's gonna happen here, right? So this, you know, as time went on and my business began to grow, I had to worry about those things. So, you know, something I want to stress to the kids is, you know, you might have to. It's not about breaking the rules, but you might have to bend them a little bit because the truth of the matter is that. The reason why most business fails, right? Most new businesses fail is because of cost. you have to really keep your overhead as low as you can, especially starting out, because I think overhead is one of the catalysts or one of the biggest reasons to why businesses fail. So when I started, what I thought my costs were going to be, right? Even though I went through the business plan, okay, I told myself, okay, all I really got to worry about is paying myself. So if a parent pays me $50 a month and a basketball costs me 35, but I have two parents, you know, my basketball is going to last me 8-9 months. I'm profiting 45. That's what I thought to myself, which wasn't the case, because then you have to tie in the flyers and the time. I wasn't really paying myself. I really didn't have a website. So those are things that we take for granted. And that's fun because, again, that's a competitive advantage that I had. My competitors had to pay for a website. They had to pay for a media guy. They had to pay for all these things, and hence why the price was so high. I myself wasn't, right? And which today, you know, I have a section of my business dedicated just to social media, just to that, and it's expensive. But when I first started, I wasn't thinking about those things. I didn't really understand them, right? And like I said, it took me years. So it's fine, you know, if for most of you guys, it's fine if you don't have those costs written down and you understand per se. Look, my legal costs are going to be this, my accounting fees are going to be this. Because the truth of the matter is, you got to try to get into the size of the business that is going to require a legal team, an accounting team, and an HR team. So you can solve those problems as time goes by. So don't automatically think that once you know, look at your balance sheet and you look at all those expenses, you're like, oh, forget it. I'm never gonna earn money. It's important to know that. It's important to know it. And I know a few of you guys are bright enough to already have that accounted for and say, look, by Q3 of year 2, I'm going to have to expense this out. And for you guys, amazing. I wasn't there. But eventually, making mistakes and learning about business, I was able to get there. So those are the two things that happened for me. I didn't really understand my numbers, so I just thought everything was going to be profit. And I finagled a little bit of the rules. And then on the second part, as I became a better businessman, right, an entrepreneur, businessman, then I began to really take into account those expenses, projections. And let me add something else, okay, for the students. There should be 2 presentations you have. The business presentation that you're going to present to the judges, right, and your teachers and your classmates. That's a best case scenario presentation. That is what everybody hopes to have and hopes to accomplish. That when you meet with a bank, is your projections, right? That's what you're gonna show them, the polished model. And you should have a model of what happens if everything goes wrong. What happens if after we get out of this coronavirus, we're into the deepest recession? How can I stay afloat? What can I do, right? So that's very important. And the second one, the worst case scenario one, is very important because it keeps you level grounded and it reminds you how quickly things can turn. And for me, it's been huge. So
what you just said, that last part, is critical, right? Because everyone always assumes best case scenario and that's it. But, you know, working through, you know, I think just like you were saying, you know, the last 3 months before all of this were the best months you've had in business. And then just like that, it just, you know, and there were a lot of businesses that, you know, I'm seeing, you know, movie theater companies that everybody knows and goes to may not come back after this, right? So what you just is huge, is you hope for the best, but you also plan for just in case that doesn't happen.
Can I add to that?
Yes, please.
Okay. I would love to just underline that point. Actually, in business, the bigger the business got, I did on a monthly basis 3 plans. My best plan, the optimistic plan, and then when I called the go to the bank plan, the finance plan, where I knew, chips are down, we could definitely do that. And then I always did a worst case scenario. And when you study that worst case and it becomes more bare bones, you realize how to build that business because that becomes your core. But in these times, I think you need to do all 3 plans. In other words, the worst case was what's just happening right now. The middle case would be what I'd run the business to, what I'll call the sales plan, but realistic. And then there's your high level plan. Because in doing that kind of thinking, it forces your brain to look at varying angles of what this business is and what it can be. And that's what helps you get through to the next step.
That part there, that's a very valuable lesson to share. You know, and I think a lot of businesses right now are finding out just how important it would be to have a worst case scenario. And a lot of them were not prepared for something like this, which it's not to say you can prepare for something like this, but a lot were more underprepared than others were.
Right, but they're all living it now. I get all kinds of calls where I give advice on how to handle and cut and change and revise the businesses. This is a very difficult time, and obviously anything we can do virtually, we need to do.
I believe it. Andres, you wanted to have a...
Yeah, this is something that I wish someone would have told me when I was going through the process that the kids are going through, was when I built my plans, my projections, and my business plan. I'll never forget, I was competing against for the state. I was a state finalist, and I won for the state of Florida. But the person I was competing against, okay, my projection said $120,000 in revenue, which that to me was astronomical, right? Because my average sale was $50. So I was like, my mentor said, always think big. I was like, man, I'm thinking really big, right? And then the individual that I was competing against had revenues of $100 million. And I remember when I saw his numbers, I was like, oh, forget it. This guy's going to beat me, because it's very easy to, when you think about those things, when we're creating these plans to compare against our competitors, like, oh man, this guy thinks he's going to make $100 million. I'm only thinking I'm going to make 120,000, right? So the reason I say that is because the difference between that individual and myself was that I actually went with the business. Although he knew all his numbers, he knew how to present it. What this should truly be about is not about winning the competition. What NFTE really is about is you going forward with the business and making it happen. Because although that guy knew his numbers, presented phenomenally, etc., what he really needed, what he should have really done was go through with the business, which is what I did. So a lot of the kids listening to us, don't get discouraged if, you know, someone thinks that they're going to create an app and they're going to make $1 billion. That's fine. Great for them. I hope they do it. Focus on what you can control and on your business and how you can make it larger. So that's something that I wanted to add now that we're in this topic, because it was discouraging for me when I was creating my business plan. I felt like I was in a way less than they were, because they had this new app gadget and my business was just regular personal training. So,
well, that's great that you did that, because it kind of segues nicely to the next question, which is quick tips about developing their business model and their cost structure. So you just kind of gave something around the developing the business model and how to think about that. Was there anything else that you kind of felt was important that you wish someone had told you as you were developing as a student?
Sure. What if you can understand this, in a service business, there's something called price elasticity. And what that means is that nothing is necessarily set, right? If you're going to reach a certain amount of clients at a certain price, but at some point it's better to have less clients at a higher price, because your outcome is going to be greater, right? And your energy is going to be focused on that 20% of your business that's going to generate the most amount of revenue, versus trying to just focus on volume. So this is what I mean. When I first started, I made everything about cost. So I wanted to be the most affordable, right? I wanted it to be a no-brainer for you to come bring your child to my academy. You're going to have the best training at the best price, right? As I began to grow and as I began to realize, I don't want to compete against price. I want to compete against value. I want my business to be known as our kids are going to get the best of value. So, but that only happens after you have the experience of going through building the service business. Does that make sense? So the value came from the way we treated our customers, going the extra mile for our kids, the advice we give them, the fact that, for example, something small, but that is huge for our clients, our parents, is, we keep tabs on their grades, right? And so our kids, I was a basketball player. my coach was almost like a god to me, you know, whatever my coach said, I did. So, and the same thing happens now. I understand that mind frame. So when I tell the kids, listen, it's important that you do this, this, and that well in school so that you can qualify for this scholarship and play ball at the next level, right? So those are little things that create value in my business. You can't monetize that. That there's no worth in that, except that parents see it. And so they're willing to pay a premium for it. Because again, it's the long-term picture. So with a service business, really look at your competitors, of course. You know, I couldn't start out charging $50,000 a month for training your child. But as time has gone by, okay, I began to understand my market better. I realized I could increase we're now the highest priced service in our industry, right? But I never forgot where I started. So I have programs so that kids that were in my situation that couldn't afford it, I don't lose those kids. I keep them in as well. So in the service industry, you have price elasticity. You yourself have to figure out, you know, where you feel comfortable.
I think that a lot of economists call that what the market will bear, right? So that's amazing that you said you went from kind of competing on the basis of price, switched it to the basis of value, and were able to actually justify based on value now being the highest price in your industry.
And something else, Daniel, is understanding that people don't act rationally. And I'll give you an example. When Apple came out with the iPhone, the first iPhone, it was priced at like $570, something like that. When a Motorola or a Nokia, which were the big phones back then, were priced at $100. Microsoft laughed. They at their national convention, they laughed at Apple, like, forget it. They're not going to be able to sell these phones. They're too. So people are irrational, and we know it. We have friends that go and spend $2,000 on a, especially in high school. I remember I had friends that would spend $2,000 on a belt or girls on a purse, and it happens, right? But so that's not a rational purchase. So a lot of times it's not just the price, right? So there's many things that go into the psychology of the customer wanting to buy that product. And that's important to understand too in the service industry, right? Because there's no way that a Gucci shirt is worth $750 and the same quality Ralph Lauren shirt is worth $90. It's just a perceived value, and that's what makes the price differential, right? So it's important for the kids to understand that a lot of times we focus just on the price, but as you build your business, think about value, right? A lesson that I learned in negotiating, right? I never negotiate on price. I always negotiate on value. So whenever a client would want to, when I first started my business, clients would want to be like, oh, can you give me a discount? Can you give this a little cheaper? And I lost a great client because I gave a new client a lower price than I had given my client that had been with me for years. And that's not fair, right? So when I negotiate, when somebody comes up to me, I said, look, man, we're priced at the best number that we can for the value we provide. I'll tell you what, let's go over in this first month. If you don't think that we're worth what we're charging you, I can understand if you leave. But never negotiate on price, right? And then I threw little incentives. So a lot of people, when you negotiate a deal, a service business, they want to feel like they won, like they got you on the pricing. So for me, it's uniforms. If I see that the client may not commit unless I give them a discount, I'll give them a $5 discount on the uniform, or a $10 discount, or a $15 discount on the uniform. And the client leaves with a smile on his face thinking, I did a great job. I negotiated a great deal. I just got a discount. You know, I saved myself $15-20, and people want to feel that way. But my service per se, I never negotiate on that because what I'm offering is great value. But again, it takes time, guys, to build yourself to that level, right? When I first started, my first 3 years, if somebody asked me for a $10 discount, I was giving it because that was money coming in. Top line, what Judy said, your top line revenue. I needed revenue. So, yeah.
No, that's a valuable lesson. And I see Tahaji threw it in the group chat that never negotiate on price, always negotiate on value. That is a huge thing that I wish we said more and louder from the rooftops. Judy, would you like to share kind of any tips you would love to?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about this value subject. Value, it couldn't be more important than today with what we're living. Everyone is holding on to their dollars. It's very critical that we think value. And I agree. You don't think price first, you think value. But the key to value are two words, and it's called over-deliver. Give them more than expected, and then your value becomes even more important than your competition. And there are ways to get people to test and to sample your service or product if they object to price to begin with, until they learn it and see the value. An example of that is, until recently, I was running a lingerie company called Hanky Panky. Some of you may know it. And it's famous for stretch lace underwear, handmade in the US. Well, we were the highest priced thong, but also the bestseller. Why? Because we over-delivered. It lasted the longest, it had the best stretch, it was the most comfortable, it came in the most colors, it felt good. So that's a matter of over-delivering. And really key is you look at your product or service in comparison to others.
I love that.
The other thing is, it became fun because I'd go to a party and people of all ages and all sizes and all types knew about Hanky Panky. And if somebody didn't, I'd say, you know what? I'm going to give you one to try. You call me tomorrow and tell me how you liked it. I had an instant sale by the next day. And not just of one, they bought a dozen. So there are ways to be creative in how you test and sample out your product and service.
I love that.
What Judy just said, that's big in sales. For example, I'm so confident in my product that I give a free lesson. Come try it out. And I changed it. So when I first started, I would say you get the first class for free, right? So when my customers would come in, my potential customers would come in, they'd do the practice. But since I said the first class was free, then they wouldn't expect to make the financial commitment till the following practice. So the way we changed that was we said, you can try it out for free. And if you like it, you can register at the end of practice. And if you don't, so that way you get the customer to make the decision on that day. But I gave them that trial because I'm that confident in the value that my business provides, just like she was confident in her lingerie. She knew that if they tried it, there was a good chance that they were going to come back. That's very important from a sales strategy.
That's a good way to do it.
A brilliant way to do it.
Yes, yes.
I think, what is it? When you go to the mall and they're always handing out samples and then all of a sudden now you just bought the whole meal. Try it.
It was that good.
Absolutely. So, last question, and this is something for as we're kind of going into competition season. Andres, do you have any words of advice around pitching and doing their presentation?
All right, two things. The first thing is don't memorize, internalize. Okay, it's two very different when you're presenting. When you're memorizing, you can spend 3 hours working on that plan or 30 hours working on that plan. But if it's memorized and for some reason the PowerPoint lags off a little bit, you're gonna be you're like a robot. You know, you're like, oh, what happened? What happened? I don't know. Where if you internalize, you just keep going with it because that's different. So for example, in the beginning, Daniel asked me to give my elevator pitch, my fast pitch. I remember that from the class, right? I've given that pitch so many times that you can ask questions in between there or stop me or this breakdown and I can pick up right from where it came from, right? So it's because it's internalized, right? The second thing is suffer the pain of regret or suffer the pain of discipline. And what does that mean? If you procrastinate with your presentation, okay, you're gonna be embarrassed when you go out there to present, okay? If you really are serious about this and you're a serious individual and you're serious about the opportunities that you can provide and your business can provide, then don't leave it up to chance. Prepare, ask yourself questions, present to your family, present to your dog, present to everybody, present to yourself in the mirror. All right, if you're serious, okay? But the percentage of kids that I came across when I was presenting that were serious were very small. But those that were, they were ready. And those are the guys that you have to really be thinking about because many of you guys may not take this as serious as some of the other people. Like I took this for real. And I'll give you an example. I won trips to New York. I've been to New York 5 or 7 times. Everything paid for. The first time I bought something in Fifth Avenue was because Nifty gave me a gift card so that I could buy clothes. And I remember I went to H&M, which was my favorite store at the time, and I bought myself a jacket, a tie. I was feeling like $1 million walking out on Fifth Ave with like 10 bags. That's an opportunity that came from Nifty, right? The first time I went to Europe was because of Nifty. The connections, my mentor, who's my father figure, came from Nifty. So these are opportunities that if you take advantage of them, they can potentially change your life, improve it, right? And if you do what a lot of people do, which is you don't take this serious and you're just doing it because you need an A in the class, then so be it. But eventually you'll turn on the TV or open the newspaper and you're going to see one of your classmates that wasn't any smarter than you or didn't have any gifts that you don't have, but they just went through it. And you're going to say, man, I wish I would have done it. And that's the pain of regret. The pain of discipline is taking advantage of this time, working on your numbers, presenting to your mom, presenting to your grandma, presenting to your dog, presenting to your neighbor, going out there and pitching it. There's nothing more powerful than going out there and actually selling, because a lot of the businesses are conceptual, right? But if you can actually go out there and sell it and have proof of sale, look, I've sold this. This is something that people actually want. Oh my God, the confidence that brings is tremendous, you know? So.
No, that part, the pain of discipline or pain of regret part, that to me, that's like the mic drop moment of this discussion so far, because it's such a true statement. And then the opportunities that come from being disciplined, you know, that, and I think for a lot of students, you know, I've been in a lot of classrooms and I get that a lot of students, it's a class, it's an elective class, but there's so many opportunities that I've seen in my time with Nifty that have come from that for those who do take it serious. So I'm glad they were able to hear from somebody who went through it. Now, Judy, you help a lot of our students prepare for competition and presentations. So what are like 2 or 3 things that you want to share with our students as well?
Well, I think the winning points is you are so passionate about this, your business, that you really know how to spontaneously sell it. You don't need the notes. You don't need the slides behind you. You believe it and you live it. That's number one, that we want to know this credibility. Where you can pre-test the ideas, and you can say up there, I sold something to, I tried it on X. The more proof you have of some of the validity of this concept, the better off you are. And thirdly, I would say the numbers are key. There's a lot of great concepts, but to win the presentation, you need to have realistic numbers. It's not about big. It's about being realistic about the path of where you can go. That's what I've learned. But owning it, knowing it, the passion, and really taking these presentations, not just to your family and to your dog, and believe me, I presented a lot over the years to my dogs and to the mirrors. Take it to strangers or take it to other people in a similar field. Get the critique, get the negatives out there so that you can offset them by the time you do the presentation. Again, it's research, it's back to knowing. And I hope you all got great presentations coming up.
May I add something?
Absolutely.
I'm Daquan, by the way. I was a Nifty student when I was in high school. I went to TC Williams and I was in the Nifty program for 2 years. I created at a business, created an app to help kids with disabilities, help them improve their word association. And my first time presenting, I was so nervous. You know, I really didn't know what I was really getting myself into. But you guys were saying, one of the things that I would say is most important is definitely presenting in front of your class. That's what helped me a lot. The more feedback you have, the more you'll be able to, you know, go and say, I need to change this or I need to speak louder. So I think the biggest thing is feedback. And
Yeah.
even after you present, the judges give you a copy of the a
scoring
copy
rubric.
of the
Yep.
Of their
score.
critique.
Yes, and that definitely helped me get ready for the next competition. I ended up placing 12th at nationals.
Excuse me.
Oh!
I'd like to be a part of the conversation.
Yeah, so that I say the more feedback you have is amazing.
Yeah.
And once you start taking it serious, the experience at national competition is amazing. It really is. You get to meet so many people around the world, and just talking with the judges, and I got to meet so many people through Nifty. So I would definitely say it's a blessing to really have this program and this opportunity to showcase your business.
And I do want to make a quick point before we thank all of our guests and wrap it up. I want to make sure that a lot of the students understand public speaking is not just something you do in a Nifty class. It is literally a critical part and a critical skill that you have to develop for life. So the better you get at public speaking at an early age, the more opportunities you create for yourself later in life. It's funny, I now work with students and teachers, helping them in classrooms, and the number one thing I got into trouble for in high school was talking too much. So there is a place for people who have the ability to speak in public, and there are a lot of successes that you can develop just from the ability to articulate yourself. Daquan,
I cannot applaud enough for that statement, because if you think about it, every day in your life, you are selling something, and you need to be able to communicate clearly. And that is so important. The better we can talk and get heard, the better any ideas, any thoughts, any questions, any deviling you want, that's where it comes out, because you've got a clarity to what you're saying and focusing on. So I really think we all should take a course in public speaking. It does help, and it is critical on all levels.
I agree. I don't have time for a lot of questions, but I know Leandro has had his hand raised for a little bit. If you want to unmute yourself, you have the floor.
Hello. Yes, I have a question. Since we were talking about the brands and the prizes and all this stuff, I wanted to ask you, do people associate higher prizes with better quality products? That was my answer. I don't know.
He was asking, do people equate a higher price with a better product? Does anybody want to speak to that from a brand development standpoint?
I would say that that's a part of it, but not the full part of it. Brand development has to do with name, where it's made, who's part of the company. It is not just quality, and it's not just price. And
Right.
it does change over time as you build a brand. It's a key part of it. But what is the product? What is the service? How does it hold up to competition? Again, it's not just quality price.
Right.
I mean, as we were talking about an example before of a $90 Ralph Lauren skirt and a $750 couture skirt. That $750 couture skirt is not that much better. It's not that multiple in quality.
Exactly.
But it's somebody who wants to have the pride of wearing that particular product, probably puts the label on the outside.
The way people perceive it, right? But
yeah, it's a different thing.
right. But great
But you got to
question.
look at all the components together. That's what makes the price versus the brand.
Now, Leandro, do you ask for how to price your business, your service? Is that why you're asking that question, or?
Well, my question was actually because if people associate higher prices with better quality, I don't know if you could add more prices or put higher prices on your products. People will say, "Oh, it's better than this or better than that," and they'll go and buy your product.
That's a great point. Except when someone dropped Judy dropped a golden nugget in the conversation. She said, value is when you over deliver. What happens is you might be able to make that one sell on perceived value, right? Because it's a higher price. But the second that customer tries it and it sucks, they'll go out of their way to ruin your business. Bad reviews, telling all their friends how terrible it was. Oh my God, don't pay for Leandro's beanies because, man, those things suck and they're super expensive. You know what I mean? So that's where you have to be careful.
Thanks.
Really quick, I would love to give the floor to, we'll start with Judy first for last thoughts that you just, a takeaway, a key takeaway that we didn't discuss that you want to leave with our students.
My key takeaway is go for it. If you've got an idea, a thought, try it, go for it. There's nothing to lose. You are going to win by what you learn in creating the plan and creating the strategy or the business. There's no loss. It's just terrific. And I must say, I think we're all very fortunate to have NFTE. I think everybody, all your friends should be, everyone should be in NFTE. It's the most practical course out there where we learn how to build something for real. So go for it, do it, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Get mentors, get 5 people to help you. Why not? They'll help. And in this time, with people working from their homes, I've got to tell you, people have more time. Business people would like to help you. I also work with NFTE in Stanford. And when I sent out an email to our mentor coaches, could they help us, who wanted to help in the classes out here now that spring vacation was over, I have never gotten such fast responses because people want to help. So now that's a positive about the negative time we're in. That's a takeaway for you. Let's use it.
Awesome.
Go for it.
Thank you so very much for your time. Andres,
Yes,
that
guys,
we didn't get a chance to discuss, you want to leave.
in the stage that you're in, don't look at the money first, what the outcome is. Look at what you're passionate about. Think about what it is, because when things get difficult, when recessions come, when rejections come, is the business that you're in something that you really wake up every day looking forward to do, or is it something that you're gonna hate, that's gonna drag you? All right, so don't look at the money sign first. Look at what you're passionate about. Secondly is persistence and frugality. And what I mean by frugality is capital is king, cash is king. Manage your money wisely so that when you go into situations like this, okay, a lot of my competitors might be out of business when we open doors in the 1st of June or the 1st of July or the 1st of September. Why? Because you got to be able to manage your money wisely and you got to be persistent. So now with this business presentation, be persistent. And then lastly, I couldn't add more to what Judy said. Just do it. Do it. Even if your business plan ain't that great, just go out there and do it. And you're going to get a lot more from that than any book you read or anything else. Go out there and get it done.
I love it. Thank you so very much to our panel. I would love to give you virtual snaps because this was amazing. Thank you for your knowledge. Thank you for sharing. Quick plug, we are doing Fast Pitch Fridays beginning tomorrow. So those who would like to participate, you'll get an opportunity to hop on with a volunteer coach and actually get feedback on your pitch and your plan. And since both Andres and Judy mentioned that, I highly recommend doing it. We will see you Tuesday for our next installation of the virtual speaker series. Thank you very much. Y'all have an amazing weekend. Oh, Chris, yes.
Yeah, hold on 1 second before you guys go. Take a look in the chat box. I'm posting it now for any student that resides within North Carolina, Atlanta, and Florida. I'm putting the feedback form in the chat box for you to fill out. Please copy and paste the link into your browser, and we will provide the feedback to your teachers so you get credit for attending today's session. So once again, copy and paste the link in the chat box.
Awesome. I think we've taken care of all of our housekeeping. Our guests, we truly appreciate you.
Daniel, really quick, I'm going to also post the actual link for students to register for tomorrow's session in the chat box. So if you want to bypass and not wait for it from your teacher, you also have direct access to the link to register now. So I'm going to send you the link right now, so stay tuned. Give me 1 second.
All right, well, thank you guys so much for having us. And
we appreciate you, man. That what you said. People think I just go through this stuff. I literally have. Well, you can't tell because the background, but I've got a page full of notes of information that I got from this session. This was amazing. Thank you to both yourself, Judy. You are a wealth of knowledge. Amazing. Thank you so much for being willing to share.
I enjoy this.
People. You know, so we truly appreciate you. The work that we do is not possible without those who spend and volunteer their time and their expertise. We truly do appreciate you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you guys so much. You guys have a good one.
Y'all have a great
afternoon.
Thank
you.
All right, Andreas, have a blessed one.
Chris, nice to see you, man. We'll talk. We'll catch up.
Yes, sir. Hey, Leandro, once again, man, do me a favor. Copy my email address down. Chris B, the letter CHRIS, the letter B at NFTE.com. I definitely want to send you a little gift on behalf of Nifty for your efforts as we opened up this morning today, and you showcased potential business ideas that you were trying to identify during this time, and it sounds like you're on your way to success. So keep up the great work and shoot me an email so I have your email address and contact information, and we will definitely send you a little something. Congrats, man.
Thanks a lot, Chris. I really didn't have the time to copy it down because I was looking for my pen.
And that's
but,
I'm gonna put it in the chat box for you. Hold on one second.
All right, thank you.
Yep. You got it?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Shoot me an email, and then we'll take care of you, man. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right, y'all.
Ray Paris, how are you?
Can we sign off now?
Yes.